Let's do a college football playoff video. In this video, I'm going to give you all my lines for today's playoff games, as well as my lines for all the bowl games. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. My name's MGCovers. Want to say this first. Greatly appreciate all the support you guys have given me this past year. Channel has grown a lot. The business has grown a lot. And majority of my clients come from YouTube. Some of you are not clients, but continue to watch and support this channel. And I am very appreciative of that. So this is, quote, my Christmas present to you guys. Merry Christmas. So you're going to get all my lines for the college football playoff, as well as all my lines for all the bowl games. And let me say this before I start the video. If you go to the description of this video, you'll click a link, and that will be a link to this very screen that you're seeing here. So don't worry if you don't have to copy anything down, but you'll be able to see this entire screen in great length. Okay, so first I want to talk about a couple concepts. And one concept I don't think I mentioned in the video from earlier in the week is what we call the play for and play against concept. And you remember we gave each team a letter grade based on their strength of schedule. And not only that, but the teams that they won or the teams that and or lost to. So for example, Notre Dame last night was an A team playing against a B team. So what we did was, the concept is to play for the A teams. That means irregardless of the line, you play for the A team to win and cover. And if a team is playing a D team and they are higher than the D team, meaning they're a C team, B team, or A team, you play against the D team. So far, that went 1-0. South Alabama won and covered. James Madison won and covered. Georgia Southern was a loss. And then Florida last night basically blew out Tulane. That was probably Tulane's best game, hardest opponent of the year, which is the case in point for how we do these classes. So Florida won and covered over Tulane. So that concept alone has gone 4-1. So when you're looking at these lines, one simple way to handicap this, again, just to review that, play for the A teams, irregardless of the spread, as long as they're not playing another A team, and then to play against the D teams, irregardless of the spread. So if you look at, for example, Coastal Carolina versus Texas San Antonio, so we would play for Texas San Antonio because they are a C team playing against a D team. Same with Fresno State here. We would play for Fresno State against Northern Illinois. Okay, and then here's one for the B and A team. We would play for Kansas State against Rutgers because Kansas State is an A team. So there's that concept. And also, too, if you look at the line, I explained this in the last video, but just to review, what I did was if the teams are even, like you see Clemson and Texas are even, then I defaulted to my, quote, stat model where we use actual stats, and whichever team was the highest or how that stat model calculated a line, then that's how that line would be. So first, I want to take a look at, so Penn State here is -7. You take a look at the books line, and Penn State is -8. That line's gone down just a tad. So if you're playing the classes concept, that would be Penn State to win and cover there. Basically, my opinion on that one. The games I'm really going to dive into in this video are going to be Clemson, Texas, and Tennessee and Ohio State. So let's look at take a look at Tennessee and Ohio State. Now, both of these teams are even via my model. So meaning they're both A teams. However, that means it's going to default to stats. And I do have Tennessee as the, quote, statistical favorite here at -8. And also, too, when you look at the schedule, you know, let me pull this up 1 second, y'all. One important concept that I don't think is being factored into these bowl games is form. And I'm going to pull up a screen and we'll take a look at Ohio State's schedule here. Form is very important, how a team is playing now. The best indication of future performance is most recent performance. And we'll talk about that in the Clemson game. Clemson got blown out by Georgia, but that was the first game of the season. I think that was the end of August or 1st of September. Not relevant right now here, December the 21st. So when you look at Ohio State's schedule, you scroll down here to the bottom. They play Michigan. I have Michigan as a B team, lost to them the 13-10. Not good. A lot of talk about Ryan Day potentially losing his job if he doesn't win a national championship. Let's slide over here and look at Tennessee. and we'll just kind of review their schedule, and I'll show you this kind of how I would look at this too. So if you just look at A teams, they beat Oklahoma, who I do have Oklahoma as an A team, lost to Arkansas. That's a B team. That was a bad loss. They beat Florida. I do have Florida as an A team. They beat Alabama. I do have as an A team. They lost to Georgia, who is an A team. And they beat Vanderbilt, who I also have as an A team as well. I do feel like as far as like strength of schedule, that does favor Tennessee. And then when you look at the stats as well via the model, we have Tennessee favored. So if you were going to play this game, obviously you could take let me pull up the lines here. You could take the points here at 7, which is generally what is recommended when you see the line at a +7. But you could play that on the money line at +222. And I'm going to talk about this Clemson Texas game here in a second. But the general rule for me, if you're getting less than a touchdown, you would play on the money line. If you're getting more than that, or at least a touchdown, you might take the points. That's generally the rule I use for college football as well as NFL. And as you know, teams that win also cover 80% of the time. That's pretty much true for college football and NFL. So it's advantageous if you believe a team is going to cover. There is, quote, 80% chance that they'll also win that game outright. All right, so have Tennessee as the favorite there via the model. Now, next, let's talk about this Clemson game. And I think there's something in this Clemson-Texas game that nobody's talking about. We talked about form in that previous game, and that's coaching experience. And I'm going to go through this quickly with Dabo Swinney. Dabo Swinney has coached in 11 playoff games. He's only been blown out 4 times, and that's to be, I think you can respect that because if you get blown out in a college football game, your college football playoff game, you're playing a really good team. But I want to review some of these games going all the way back to 2015. Now, I understand this is what I call a situational angle, which means we look at the model itself. The model has both these teams as an A team, but we have Texas -6. The line is actually -13, opened at 11. So it's moved against Clemson in favor of Texas there. So we do have some value there, about a 7-point differential between my line and the sportsbook line. So when I talk about coaching, this is what I call a situational angle, similar to form. So we're not going to base an entire play on one situational angle, but I think it's something that's very undervalued in this game. 2015, first round of the playoffs, Dabo Swinney blew out Oklahoma 37-17. 2016, he blew out Ohio State 31-0. He did lose to Bama. He got blown out 6-24. 2017. 2018, when they won the Natty, they blew out Notre Dame 30-3. They beat Alabama 44-16. So you can already see a pattern that Dabo does a really good job of prepping his teams for the playoffs. And when the moment is, quote, big, his teams come up big more times than not. 2019, they beat Ohio State first round 29-23, got blown out by LSU in 2019. That was that Joe Burrow team that basically blew out everybody. They did get blown out in 2020 by Ohio State 28-48. And then same in 2022, 14-31 Tennessee. So in the 11 playoff games, Dabo has only been blown out 4 times. Let's move over here to Texas and talk about some situational angles. So important factor to keep in the back of your mind, Dabo Swinney has coached in 11 playoff games, tons of experience. Sarkisian has coached in 2, and he lost to Washington both times. 2022 lost 20-27. And then again, last year, 31-37. Now, I want to look at Texas's schedule. And you look at actual A teams. They did beat Oklahoma, who was an A team, 34-13. They lost to Georgia, 30-15. They beat Vanderbilt, 27-24, which is an A team. Beat Florida, an A team. And then Texas A&M, they beat, who was an A team, and then lost here last week to Georgia, who was an A team as well, 22-19. So Texas has played 6. This is important with regards to the line. So the line is basically -13, -13.5 at some books. So they played 6 A teams. They only covered the -13 twice. That's it. So this is, I've talked about this before in some previous videos. This is what I call the sharp calculation, is you take the line, which is -13.5, and you apply it to all the games to get a, quote, sharp calculation. So make sure we're comparing apples to apples. So if you take all the A games, Oklahoma, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Florida, Texas A&M, and Georgia, they've only covered minus 13.5 twice out of 4 times. Now, let's go over here to, I'm sorry, twice out of 6 times. Take a look at Clemson's schedule. This is a big mistake I think the marketplace is making. They're looking at Texas's games against Georgia and saying, wow, those were competitive. You look at Clemson got blown out by Georgia. That was first week of the season, and I don't think that has much stock. Again, that's, quote, old form. That's not recent form. And when you look at outside of that loss, if you keep scrolling all the way down, they lost to Louisville. That was a terrible. I have Louisville as a B team. Clemson lost 33-21, but they still covered the, quote, 13.5. So what I'm saying is you do just the opposite here. We're going to apply 13.5 points to Louisville. So, and then they lost to South Carolina, very competitive game. They could have won that game. So I don't even really think you can count that as a loss. They were driving. All they had to do was just kick a field goal. Ball bounced off of the defender and popped up in the air. South Carolina intercepted it, but they could have easily won that game. Of course, they did beat SMU. They basically blew out SMU in the first half. I think Dabo played not to lose that game and not to win and didn't play as aggressive. And SMU did come back to make it a little bit closer, but that was basically a blowout game. However, that being said, they have not lost by 13.5 outside of that Georgia game. So when I'm looking at this game situationally, I think this line is way off. 13.5, and I think my line's way more accurate at 6. And considering you're getting the 13.5 points, obviously that is probably the play there, is to take the 13.5 points. You could take the +7 with Tennessee, but what we know about the 80% rule in college football and NFL, teams that cover win outright 80% of the time. If you really wanted to get maybe creative, you play Clemson on the money line to win outright, Tennessee on the money line, and hope that you win. You at least win one of these. And if you win both, plus 397, plus 222, you're basically covering 6.2 units. You would win in both of those games. So I hope this video helps. Super excited to watch this. It'll be a very entertaining day. Again, if you click the link to this video, you'll be able to see all of these lines for all the games. And if you got any questions about any of these games or my opinion, you can put your comments here on the screen and I'll answer those as well. Have a great Christmas. If I don't talk to you guys before, greatly appreciate the support. Talk to you guys soon. Peace.